A no commentary version of this run can be found in the pinned comment in the comments section below. This video is intended as a game walkthrough. It is not a speedrun. All strategies in this video were made for efficiency and success rate. Please watch the entire video and listen carefully to the commentary before trying any of these strategies for yourself. Hello everyone. This is a no damage, knife only playthrough of Resident Evil 3 on the PS1.
This is Chopper Delta, preparing to drop off at area E95072.
So this was recorded on a PlayStation 2 with RGB capture. In case you're wondering about why everything looks so clean, this isn't an emulator. I did use saves for this run. Full disclaimer. But that's because there would have been simply way too much RNG otherwise. So to start, just gonna kind of backpedal out of the way so that we can get around that zombie, because the path opens up and we have a lot more room to dodge that zombie when we get around. So I did this in about 20 saves. This is not an A rank or anything like that. But I mostly recorded this as such, just so that I could go ahead and dispel any notions or anything that I would have used, like emulator or save states or anything like that. Because I'm pretty sure the vast majority of knife no damage playthroughs on YouTube are all with save states. But that's not really the point. The point of this video is not really so much, hey, look at me, I can do knife only, no damage. It's more of, this is how it can be done, kind of thing. So we'll start with the obvious. The only box trip throughout the whole run. Grab the knife, equip the knife, grab an ink ribbon, save the game. The reason why I save the game here is because there is a very, very intense RNG segment coming up right now. So you might be wondering at this point, how is it even possible to clear Resident Evil 3 with only a knife and without taking a single hit? Well, I'm glad you asked, because as it turns out, Resident Evil 3 is probably the single best Resident Evil game balanced towards use of the knife only. And the key to that lies in knowing all of your movement options and all of your every action possible that can be done while doing the knife, using the knife, excuse me. Specifically with the evade actions and some such, but basically you're going to have to, the only way that this is going to be possible at all is with a lot of RNG manipulation and being an absolute master at emergency evades. Even more so than Code Veronica. No chat. No Twitch chat. Absolutely not. Code Veronica is actually a terrible knifing game. I'll explain why later. So we gotta wait for these guys to come out all the way, then we go all the way down here, and then I turn my back towards this zombie. And I'll talk a little bit about the way emergency evades work. Basically, if you have your back towards the zombie, then it takes longer for you to raise your knife completely. Thus, it gives you even more of what I like to call evade frames. Somehow I was able to squeeze around these two guys here as well. So your evade frames are basically the frames in between the point that Jill is standing and Jill has her weapon raised completely. If you have your back towards the zombie, then it takes a few more frames before Jill completely raises the knife and is able to begin attacking. So the point from between standing and being able to launch your first attack is going to be the amount of frames that you have to be able to get around a zombie, to be able to push a zombie back, especially because a zombie has literally nothing telegraphable, if that's even a word, for their attack. It's like they just go from standing to attacking pretty much immediately within a few frames. So it's like the zombie pretty much always has active damage frames. So it all comes down to how many frames away is the zombie going to be before it lands in your aiming frames and your evade frames. And the answer is you got to learn how to feel it out. That's really the only advice that I have to give at that point. So you might be noticing that I unlocked that previous door before going into the bar to get the lighter with the Brad encounter. And the reason I did that was to reset the positions of the two zombies that were outside the back of the bar next to the dumpster, just to get them out of the way. Because you can see that whenever I came back, these two zombies had returned to their spots by like the exit to this area and that other traffic light respectively. So it just enabled me a clean break to get to the bar. Otherwise I would have gone through all those resets just to get bit in the back by the shithead zombie in the blue vest next to the one that Brad shot down. So after all that, I didn't want to go back and do all that again, so I decided to save my game. So the next segment here will be pretty much all of the RPD. It's just straight speedrun strats and dodges up to this point. As per usual, yeah, you know, yada yada. This is not a speedrun. We'll meme about it all day. I know how it is. But occasionally there are some speedrun strats that actually lend themselves to a no damage run, but specifically the knife only no damage runs. It depends. Also, a side note, this is actually done on the US version, which is much, much harder. Because every boss has an additional 100 HP. The codes, as per usual, 0131, 0513, 4312, 4011. So in the previous room, we got that bad zombie pattern, which would mean that the zombie comes into frame on like the first camera angle. So we would take the long way around in order to get around all the zombies there. Generally, I prefer for them to be all inside Marvin's office, but because I was already pretty much brute forcing this with saves anyway. Like brute forcing the more RNG sections with saves anyway, it wouldn't have really mattered too much. Half of my decisions for wanting to use saves are either to get past more superfluous sections of the game, such as this one, where it's like my success rate for getting around zombies and shit like that is always already going to be really high because I already knew the dodges. Or because something was like way too RNG and I didn't want to do it again. So I guess the simple answer is I just saved because I didn't want to do it again. I only cared about making a video. So we skated by these guys, as per usual. Nemesis gonna bust out the window. We're just gonna run down the hall, get around him. But as a result of this being a knife-only no-damage run, we don't even have to visit any more item boxes either, which is pretty nice. Just occasionally pick up first aid sprays. Who am I kidding? Ink ribbons. Squeeze past that guy. If we get this pattern, we have to get a little lucky and hope that that zombie on the way out doesn't go turbo and grab us before we hit the door. If all the zombies showed up in Marvin's office instead, then it would have just been a straight shot. In order to get around these guys, just squeeze in between the red car and the dog and stay kind of towards the right and squeeze in between the wall and the dog afterwards. Not really a whole lot I can reliably say about that. Just kind of go to the left or go to the right. For these guys, just squeeze to the dog's left. Keep the pallet on Jill's right. Well, the bunch of bricks, actually. Pile of bricks. Drain Demo's gonna drop down. We're just gonna turn left of frame and then run around him. Head to the door. And because going down that alleyway would mean we would have to dodge zombies, we are going to say fuck that and just go around the front. The path of least resistance. Always my favorite.
How did he find me?
In order to get around Nemesis here, we're just going to wait for the live select to time out. doing this, he's going to whiff. Then we can just bully our way around him while he's recovering. Then we're going to leave, and upon doing so, we can go directly to the save room and pick up the rusted crank. In general, it's going to be better to let the live select time out so that we can squeeze by, or we can use the lamp even if we want to. Just going to make another save over here so that we can get around him in the newspaper building, because that dodge is a little tricky. So because we chose those particular options with Nemesis in the restaurant, it will actually prevent zombies from spawning in this T-shaped alleyway over here. Whenever we exit this room, Nemesis is probably going to be outside. But if he's not around that little set of steps there, he's going to be over here. And when this happens, well, I actually got pretty lucky there. Normally what I like to do whenever he runs in from like the left side of the screen, if he's running at me, then I usually like to just keep resetting the door. But because I just loaded from a save, it's like whatever. Doesn't matter. So because Nemesis is chasing us, there's not going to be an extra zombie in the hallway over here. Grab the green gem, we can quick turn here. And then we trigger the camera angle by heading directly around the corner on the left side of that camera angle to just get it as early as possible, but also to line us up so that we'd be able to hit the run button while running. Like while Nemesis is moving, and he'll either walk or he'll run. If he decides to run, then we just straight up run around him, but otherwise we gotta wait for him to get around that section of the room where there's just a little bit of an opening for you to squeeze around him. We got sleeping zombies this time, which I'm pretty sure is the safer pattern. If the zombies are awake, then there's a bit more footwork we gotta do to get around them all. One other reason that I made that save in the alleyway over there was because we needed to spawn dogs here, and if we didn't, then we would basically be unable to dodge the zombies quite so efficiently every time. So it's always better to have dogs than zombies here.
Jill, put this on.
Gotta try and climb on the side of the pallet, respective to Jill's left. Jill's subjective left. Which is going to be the easiest way to get around all those dogs. And because we got the sleeping pattern earlier, we're able to just run straight forward when the zombie busts out the car. Then we can head directly to the gas station. Do that whole shebang over there.
Jill!
So the next set of zombies that are going to bust out of here, we will deal with them in a little bit. We're just going to run directly to the save point and make another save, so that we don't have to watch all those cutscenes again while trying to dodge through zombies. We're trying to use emergency evade through zombies because emergency evade is very touch and go. Don't always want to rely on emergency evade. Trying to grab the bronze book from the statue of the mayor is very much an RNG affair. There's a lot of randomness to it, which is why I decided to save here. So we're just going to turn right and squeeze by this zombie. Because we re-entered the save room, the T-shaped passage here repopulated with zombies again. Incidentally, it's the same zombie pattern that just keeps repopulating. It just repopulates in this hallway like 3 times. So we can pretty much always squeeze past the zombie in the business suit, that first zombie in the business suit there. We can grab the bronze book here, and the zombies are being nice to us, so there's like a gap that we can get around them, but then we got to worry about these other two, so we're going to run up towards these herbs. We're not picking them up, we're just using the space to figure out what the other 2 zombies are going to do, because the first 2 zombies that we dodged, they generally don't spin around unless we are in close proximity. So after I grabbed that, I decided to save my game. I believe I saved no less than 3 times going through this whole section, just simply because of that one mob of zombies. Pain in my fucking ass. So the reason I made a save after grabbing the bronze book was because of that one zombie right there, because he is always in a very awkward position. A narrow hallway that has a zombie facing at a 45-degree angle means that you are going to have to do some pretty funky things in order to dodge it. So in my case, the only thing that I could really do was use an emergency evade in order to shove him to the side. One thing about emergency evades is if you hold R1 for too long while you are hitting that emergency evade, then Jill will fully raise her knife after doing the shove. And if she does that, then it's not going to buy you enough time to be able to follow up with an actual dodge around the shove. So you have to tap R1 and hope you didn't press R1 for too long when it happens. So on the way back, I usually like to aggro the zombie by walking in front of him. Hopefully he goes turbo, because if he goes turbo, then his turn radius is way too slow, and he is not going to spin around to catch up with me. So of course, here's that save. So now we're going to run back to get the battery. You can get either dogs or crows here, but it's always going to be the same general dodge pattern. Just take a nice wide arc, running forward straight, first and foremost. I'm just going to squeeze by. It's always a pretty straight shot to grab this item or put the item in, whatever you need to do, but it's getting out that's the problem. Oh wow, that was an interesting dodge. Because I didn't see any more zombies pouring in through the gate, I just decided to try to YOLO it, see what I could get away with. I used an awful lot of an awful lot of ink ribbons in this section, so I decided to run back into the newspaper building in order to grab an ink ribbon, which is literally just like 2 pixels on a screen. How is anyone supposed to find this on a CRT? The answer is they're not. Wait for this guy to run forward. We'll squeeze around him. He went turbo because he was running forward. He had his back to the wall. He wasn't going to be able to turn around fast enough to grab me. But that is all dependent on when that zombie would go turbo. This is the end of using too many saves here for a while. Just gonna have this guy walk up against again, and we were able to just straight up dodge in between him and the spittoon. That's actually a really rare dodge. Otherwise, I probably would have just shoved him aside. But our next destination is going to be... What is this guy doing? It's one of those rare occasions where there's just a drain demos just not wanting to do anything. So the reason why I was sort of delaying everything there and not running, drain demos actually aggro when you run. I was actually hoping that they would both be on the wall so that I'd be able to just run straight past them and get directly to the elevator. This is actually the pattern that I wanted. I could have done just as well with the other pattern. But because we got the pattern where the zombies are gathered more by the gate than by the elevator, had to make sure that the last zombie by the gate would be aggroed and moving forward in order to be able to squeeze through and get to the gate. But the chief reason I came here first was so that we would just go ahead and get the 4th Nemesis encounter out of the way. And in doing so, it would actually eliminate us seeing him when we return to Uptown, and it would also get rid of the Brainsucker encounter on the way back here. Drain Demos, Brainsuckers, whatever. They're the same goddamn enemy today, to me. I can't find a difference. Their attack pattern is literally the same. Because we're on a slope there, those zombies are going to vomit, so... as long as we are a nominal distance away whenever we swerve around them, they'll just puke if we accidentally get anywhere near close to them. You juke, he puke. Dodging these dogs in reverse is pretty easy. These crows can either pop out early or late. I don't think it really matters whether they do or not. Coming back through here, there's going to be 2 more drain demos. Trying to get them to climb the wall so that we can just run straight around. If they're on the wall, they can't jump and head us off halfway across the room. Which is kind of a bullshit thing that brainsuckers and drain demos do. And after putting out the fire, we're going to save our game again because there's a lot of really tough zombie dodging in the pharmaceutical sales office coming up. Upon entering the area outside the sales office, there's going to be some drain demos, and we just need to hug the wall. The first drain demos is going to do whatever it does, and then we're going to go straight to the door.
Wait!
I'll just punch in any of the codes. Safsprin. Safsprin worked. There's another ink ribbon on the table here. I think the code was hard seeded to be Safsprin. So in order to get around these guys, we're going to knife the valve. Just try to thin out the horde over here. It takes about 2 shots usually for these guys to fall and die, but they decided to turn around, so I decided to squeeze behind the green shirt zombie over here because the turbo zombie would not have been able to go through him. Fortunately, the green shirt zombie turned counterclockwise. If he had turned clockwise, then he would have headed me off, and I wouldn't have been able to make that dodge, so that was pretty lucky. Did a couple of quick turns to put my back towards the zombies and buffered up those shoves. I didn't knock any down, but I was able to get around those zombies over there, fortunately. Coming back through here, the drain demos are going across the wall. So just able to run. It'll just like start walking, confirm they're on the wall, then run past. Much of this segment is just clearing through a bunch of cutscenes and really easy dodges. But only after making the really hard dodge in the sales office, excuse me. Making our save in the post office here. Or to get around a couple more RNG dodges. I usually like to squeeze the wall on Jill's subjective left when heading up that slope because usually the zombie in the blue vest there likes to walk forward a couple of steps. Then when the camera angle changes, I usually turn 45 degrees, hit the corner. That zombie hadn't aggroed yet, so I just decided to YOLO it, and when dodging past this zombie, I always wait for him to get to the stairs so that I can bait out some vomit, get around him that way. The easiest way that I know to dodge Nemesis here is just a carryover from the other no damage runs that I've done, where I just like try to squeeze to the right before you trigger his appearance, and then he will basically run towards me at an angle where he would be forced to create an opening for me to get around him. So I got around him and then just dodged through these other guys. I hit the power button here. Gravedigger hadn't shown up yet. I decided to say no really quick because I wanted to wait for the Gravedigger to show up before I said yes, because sometimes if you just hit yes, then the Gravedigger will not pop out. Upon getting back to the train area, it's just a matter of getting around these dogs, and then we are home free. Pretty much home free. Because letting the live event time out in the restaurant is the same as choosing to hide in the dining area and throw the lamp. Carlos will bring you flame rounds on the train here.
It looks like we're ready to go. Here, take this.
But obviously we're going to tell him, no, we don't need no fucking flame rounds. Get that shit out of my face.
Nikolai won't be joining us.
I understand. I'll operate the cable car. Let's go.
me higher.
No, the brakes are out.
So I choose to jump out of the window in the train crash cutscene here, because in doing so, it will change the boss encounter with Nemesis in the courtyard completely. He will either have a rocket launcher or he won't, and we want him to start with the rocket launcher, because if he starts with the rocket launcher, then he won't use tentacle attacks. And the added tentacle attacks, in addition to all of his other melee attacks and mix-ups and shit like that, would basically make that fight next to impossible. I have seen that it is possible to do tentacle Nemesis in the courtyard without taking damage. I believe I saw that in one of HK Gold and Mr. A's more recent videos. But I haven't actually tried it or practiced it myself. I only saw that strat like well after I was done with this run, so after all that mess, gonna make our first save in the clock tower. This whole segment is going to be the entire clock tower. Because it's mostly just puzzles and a bunch of easy dodges.
Here's a gift for you.
Just going through this whole shebang before we go off to fight Nemesis at the clock tower, which is the single most difficult fight in the run, I think. So in this segment, we pray for the easiest enemies? Nope. We already got the easiest enemies. The only thing that we do is just hope that we don't get Drain Demos in this area. But we did. And we just gotta hope that the Drain Demos don't leap halfway across the room and try to suck our shoulders. Because once again, I'm playing the original US version. It's just going to be completely randomized solution. Every other version of the game is going to be up, down, up, up, down, up. can use the light or use the cord, it doesn't really matter, but I think using the cord will actually make it so that the spiders in here disappear temporarily as you are on your way to getting the silver cog, the silver gear, cog gear, whatever. As we're still playing Jill, there will only be spiders in this room. Later on, there will be either Drain Demos or spiders. We don't want Drain Demos, but for now, it's whatever. Just don't let the spiders poison you. It's 9 o'clock, so we use the obsidian in the past slot, the amber in the present slot, and the crystal in the future slot. I got this right? I think so. Yep. On the return trip through here, we're going to turn 90 degrees to the right, and then just squeeze past the first spider. It's that one spider in the middle of the hallway that generally tends to be the biggest asshole when going through this room. He's the one who's going to decide whether you get poisoned or not. The other two are pretty benign. Oh, it was the gold cog that was downstairs. I don't even know the difference between the two. All I know is it's just one of the cogs. I just don't pay attention. I don't care. Not that important. But anyway, the clock tower is done, so we're going to save our game before the single hardest thing to do in the playthrough. So the entirety of this section is just fighting Clock Tower Nemesis. It is a pretty complicated fight, but as long as you know exactly what you're doing, it is possible to go the entire 8 minutes or so that it takes to fight him without taking any hits whatsoever. So here's how it works. As soon as the fight starts, we're going to run towards Jill's left, and we're just going to start getting him to waste rockets. He's going to fire one rocket, we're going to quick turn, and go back to where we were standing when he fired the rocket, just by means of just backing up and running forward every time he fires a rocket. But after he fires 5 rockets, we want to run towards this hawk statue over here. Just stay towards the corner, and when we do that, Nemesis always hangs up. Like, not hangs up, but whenever he's running, he actually has a very low turning radius. So we take advantage of that in order to squeeze around it. And that way we can just line up and set up this this hanging strat over here. So we got to pay attention to Jill's shadow and basically pay attention to like the number of pixels she's standing at. But more importantly, we got to pay attention to Nemesis' attack pattern. It's about every 6 steps that he makes while he's hung up here, he will do an overhead punch. And you just gotta sort of wait and sort of bait it out. And we bait it out by aiming a little bit. That usually extends our hitbox just forward enough so that Nemesis tries to go for the punch. You might also notice that I am pausing a lot. Basically, after every step, after every stab, I'm turning, walking towards the wall, and I'm pausing and unpausing. The reason for this is because, one, Jill's hitbox, like the reason why I'm stepping towards the wall after every slash, is because whenever we raise the knife, Jill always does like a very, very, very teeny tiny sidestep to the left every time. So eventually, if we keep raising the knife, putting it down, pausing and unpausing, then it would shift Jill too far to the left. So that's why I'm walking towards the wall before I do the pause. Now the reason I do the pause is because every if you pause before like around the 5th or 6th step that Nemesis makes, then Nemesis will never get himself unhung from the ledge here, from the corner. He'll always be hung up on the corner. There are some very rare occasions, like the first time he got unstuck, which I actually haven't really figured out why that was. But I'll go through the procedure for getting him re-hung up after he dehangs himself, because I think it happens at least 1 or 2 more times here. When Nemesis runs like this, it is possible to slash him maybe like 1 or 2 more times. You just get like a free couple of extra slashes. But it's like usually after 1 or 2 runs after the slash. Like his attack pattern goes a little something like this. It's like 1, 2, 3. And after 3 steps, he might decide to charge. And if he does like 2 running steps, he may decide to do a lunge punch after that. But if he does not, then you can get an extra slash off, but you always want to bait out his punches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So like on the 6th step or so is whenever he will do a, if he's walking, then it will take 6 steps for him to do a punch. Like for him to do a lunge punch. But if it's after that punch, he might mix it up a little bit, and after like 4 more steps, like after 4 steps, he might run. After 6 steps, he'll most certainly do a lunge punch. But if he goes 4 walking steps, 2 running steps, then those 2 running steps he does not lunge punch. He's going to run for about 12 steps. Shoutouts to A Tea with Tibbers for noticing that and pointing that out to me. But yeah, as you can see, he got himself unhung, and his pattern is a little bit different, I think, in the 2nd phase, but it's like not by much. He just seems to do his more aggressive actions pretty early, like all of his running actions. 1, yeah, okay, so there, he just did it again. But whenever he gets unhung from the ledge, I just run to the lamppost on the right of the screen so that he follows me here. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to quick turn again, and then I'm just going to run in front of him. He's not going to lunge punch me, fortunately. And then I quick turn, wait for him to go that way, and try to dodge him towards his subjective left, or rather Jill's right, as it were, on the D-pad, because these are tank controls. I think the real key to just being able to beat Nemesis with the knife in general, regardless of whether you get hit or not, is to just try and figure out how to get him rehung if he dislodges himself from the corner. But in general, when Nemesis runs 12 steps like that, he will not follow up with an attack. In the US version, Nemesis takes 90 stabs to kill, 50 stabs to down him the first time, and 40 stabs to down him the second time, so it's 90 stabs total. Because Nemesis wasn't running there, I decided to just run in front of him. Because otherwise I was kind of hoping for a charge and just being able to dodge him directly, taking advantage of his full running speed and his subsequent lunge punching after that. That lunge punch is the most bullshit attack in the game, honestly. Yeah, there we go again. So headed towards the right, quick turn, run in front of him. That'll set him up so that he might charge for us. He might whiff an attack. If he whiffs, all the better. We can just quick turn and head right back towards that third tile that I keep standing on. So I counted 1, 2, 3, 4 steps. So as long as you know, like, Nemesis flowchart, like basically the flowchart pattern of his fight, it's actually not horrendously difficult to beat him without using a first aid spray. So it should be about like 10 more stabs by the end of this fight. Oh, there it goes again. Quick turn, run in front of him. Head in front of the statue, quick turn, just run back around him because he's big, he's fast, and really slow to turn. Gotta always take advantage of that slow turning radius. Hopefully I did a good job of explaining that fight, because this is actually horrendously difficult.
Jill! Jill! Hang in there! What have I done?
I totally
sorry,
forgot to
Jill.
skip this cutscene.
Please, wake up!
Mostly because I was in utter disbelief that I even did this.
Jill! Jill!
October 1st, night. I woke up to the sound of falling rain. I can't believe I'm still alive.
So after doing that, it's basically all downhill from here. First and foremost, upon taking control of Carlos, we put away his machine gun and his handgun and pick up the knife immediately. So after doing Nemesis, we are headed straight to the hospital. One of the reasons why I keep previous saves is so that I can roll back in case I get the wrong RNG permutation. But anyhow, we wanted spiders, we got spiders here. So let's dodge right past that. It is possible to manipulate the RNG in the hospital directly to get exactly the enemies that you want. The best spiders that you can, or sorry, the best enemies that you can get for a knife-only run require you to go to the basement first. But basically it all depends on whether you get zombies in the basement or not, and that's one of the reasons why I made a save at the chapel. So the way that the enemies work in the hospital is you can either get zombies in the basement or not. But you have to go to the basement first, because if you go to the 4th floor first and you have hunters spawn in the basement, you will never ever be able to get through the elevator in time. And the hunters will just fuck you up. Like, you'll get stun locked to death. You will never be able to do it, so you have to go basement first. But fortunately, being able to go basement first allows you to manipulate. If the zombies do not appear in the basement, then they will appear either on 4th floor or on 1st floor, depending on which order you go through the area first. But because we went B3 here, there's no hunters down here. At least no hunters in these first 2 rooms here. But if you interrupt the but basically if you head back to make a save after doing the B3 area, you can actually manipulate the zombies to show up on the 4th floor, because the zombies will for some reason just not appear on the 1st floor unless you go and get like both of the vaccine ingredients first. That's the only time that they will actually appear on the 1st floor. I feel like there were some redundancies in that explanation, but I'm doing the best I can. But just simply put, go to the basement first, go to the 1st floor, and then go to the 4th floor, and you will always get zombies on the 4th floor, and you will never get hunters in the basement. And that way is actually probably the easiest enemy setups to do knife only for the Carlos section. Though originally I had mostly wanted to save on the 1st floor so that I would be able to practice doing the zombies on the 4th floor. Little did I realize I had accidentally manipulated this area. Shoutouts to Julian for cluing me into this fact. So upon heading up to the 4th floor, there's a setup that I'm going to do. I move up to the elevator doors as they're opening. There's still a collision box on the elevator doors as it's opening, so it gives you just enough time and incidentally enough space to move up to the elevators. Quick turn, and then when the zombie comes in through the door, you can actually get around him. And for the hunter over here, required a little bit of footwork. I'm not even sure what I did to get him to cooperate with me. He just kind of did. I'm going to take a little zigzag pattern, and then we'll head into the room that gives us the solution to the room adjacent to it. We got 531. Means it's actually hard locked to 531, I believe. So upon exiting this room, we're going to turn our back towards that zombie so that whenever he gets close enough, we're able to execute an emergency shove. Then we'll head in here, do the 531 solution. We want the zombie next to the door as we come out of the room to not be going turbo. If he does, then we just quick turn and go back through the door immediately so that we can reset him, and hopefully he does not go turbo again. The idea is to try to get as much space as possible between that zombie attacking us and being able to slash this other zombie here because, you know, again, we got a zombie in the middle of the hallway with the facing a goddamn 45-degree angle, and whenever they do that, it means that they are nigh undodgeable without a setup. So I did precisely that in order to be able to get back into the room with the doctor's note. And then I walked forward a little bit to get the zombie next to the elevator to bump into the wall. And that gave us just enough time to be able to squeeze between him and his buddy in order to get to the elevator. Then we go down the elevator and past these two hunters. It's probably the single most complicated set of dodging in the entire game. But it's like once that's all said and done, the Carlos section is over. So from here, the idea is to squeeze past a bit of superfluous cutscenes and, I don't know. I mostly just made the save over here because I didn't want to get memed by a spider on my way back to Jill. Okay, that was a weird audio glitch. I think that that is going to be priority 1 for things that I should fix with my audio setup. I am not very good at making cables. So after squeezing past that spider, we're just gonna, yeah, do the rest of this. Just go directly to Jill. quick turn and run like hell. Upon taking control of Jill again, we've got to make sure that we re-equip the knife. It's pretty funny that Nemesis can actually like bust down that door, and that whole room is actually just like the same room. So I'm going to make my save here. It will allow me to reset if I get an undesirable enemy pattern in the park. Because there's two random enemy patterns we can get. We can either get hunters or zombies, and we can either get hunters or dogs in an area with a key. So just going to make our save here. So upon exiting the save room, we just turn left 90 degrees and just run straight forward, bully our way past the first zombie, and just sneak right past the second zombie. We juke, he pukes. So we go down the stairs over here, and we have to get hunters here. If we get zombies, then our chances of success go to nil. And we want to take long lines around these hunters, because that way, whenever they jump out, they're just going to run in straighter lines towards us, and that way we can just avoid getting hit on the way back. We squeeze past this first dog. Both ways upon getting the key, but basically hunters and dogs are actually the safest pattern to get. You might be thinking, well, gosh, Carcy, why hunters? Aren't hunters more dangerous than zombies? And the answer is yes, they are, but they are also easier to dodge than zombies. Gravedigger moving in the background, nothing to see here. Squeeze past all these zombies, and then we're just going to advance some more cutscenes and then save the game to do the Gravedigger fight.
I'm quite
So the fight with the Gravedigger is not horrendously difficult, but it does take some pretty precise positioning in order to get right.
What's going on?
So first up, whenever the fight starts, because we got a knife, we have to get out of here immediately. So just take the outside of the wall, and standing at this rock here, we're going to back up. After he gets his full body out of the ground, we want him to raise his head. If we're going too far away from the worm, then he's going to start rushing after us. Basically, we just want to stay kind of close to him as he gets his body out of the ground. But when he goes into like his underground phase like this, where he's like fucking digging around and popping his head out and being a shithead, then we just have to keep baiting out his attacks. But after you hear like the bump like that, and that's when he's gonna have his body come out all the way. And as he is emerging from the ground, we just kind of stay close to him because he actually won't attack, but how close we are will predicate whether or not he will raise his head and then do a downward lunge after that, or whether he will rush us. And we don't want him to rush us because he will just chain his rushes until he gets an attack off. Or until we can get him to raise his head. So we got the worm to come out again, and because he was pretty far away from us, he's going to do a charge at us. Baited that out, and after we baited out the charge and dodged the attack, we can actually get close to him and force him to raise his head. Now he's gonna go under the ground again, and when he does that, when he submerges 3 times, then the light posts, this little cutscene will happen, the light posts will fall over a bit, and that's your cue to knife them, and then he will get out again, the Gravedigger will emerge from the ground again, and then he will electrocute himself. Just in case you were wondering how to do this fight with a knife. if we get the worm pattern, then we just want to hug the walls the whole time. As soon as we see the 3 worms grouped together, we're just going to shift over to the other wall, just sort of diagonally run from one wall to the other. So just like swerve and then get them all to jump at you at once. Then we'll exit. Once we get up here, we're just going to wait for that zombie to come forward. Try to get him to vomit, and then we're going to squeeze around him, go back down, and then rounding out the segment is just going to be a matter of dealing with the hunters. I just like to walk for the first one to get him to jump over me. It's the second hunter that's a pain in the ass. Honestly, I think I might have just gotten lucky on this segment. I don't know, man. So once we get into the room with the dogs, what we're going to do is we're going to just walk up and stab down at the first dog and then start chaining him, and then we're going to stand behind this corner right here. And then we'll just stand over here at this corner and aim down. And when he comes around the corner, we'll just launch an attack because he's not going to get around us. Once that happens, once we knock him over, we can just make a clean break for the padlock over here because the third dog is going to be too busy eating that corpse. Also, here's a fun little glitch. If you hold the confirm button while you are opening the gate over here, like as you hit yes, if you keep holding the confirm button, then the dogs will freeze in place for a little while. You can knife the dog once, but after you knife him once, then his hitbox turns off until his recovery animation starts. The safer option in a no damage run is always going to be to jump off, because that sewer room that we went into, if we came in from the push him off route, then that room is either going to have worms or hunters, and if it's hunters, then the hunters will just royally fuck us up, and it's just going to be RNG. It's just going to be RNG getting around them. I would prefer not to deal with hunters. Or really any other undesirable enemies trying to squeeze past in that whole area. So I just always choose jump off, because it just makes the enemies that much easier to dodge. So for the water puzzle, just solve it. Come on, Pass Carcy, solve it. What the hell's the matter with you? Good job, Pass Carcy. After doing the water puzzle, because there's literally no risk of taking damage doing a singular puzzle. That's what I'm going to save the game next, because the digestion pool at the bottom, the dissolution pool at the bottom, has like one of 3 types of enemies, and I probably don't want to get brain suckers. Jumping off here, no enemies we gotta deal with, let alone enemies that are tough to dodge. There could be either hunters, there could be zombies, or there could be Drain Demos, and it is preferable that we do not get Drain Demos here. Could hear the ticking of hunter talons in there, so just decided to go ahead and make a break for the door, because that means hunters. If there's zombies or hunters, you can just make a break for the elevator and never get hit by anything. Once we get into this room, the next thing is going to be to execute a shove, then grab the system disk, then exit, then solve one more puzzle before making another save to fight Nemesis in the garbage compactor. The garbage area. Waste disposal area. Whatever you call it. The whole place is a waste disposal area. Also, I solved this puzzle the long way just because it's like I can clip through the Steam and just go to solve the stupid thing, but I just wanted to cut down on the number of stupid YouTube comments saying that I took damage because I used the glitch to solve this puzzle. YouTube commenters be like that sometimes, man. Once we come back in here, there's going to be Drain Demos, but it's just only for like 1 second. Before we get to Nemesis, we're just going to lure this zombie forward. He may or may not go turbo. Really, about the only way he's going to actually hit us is if he does a quick turn and does it like counterclockwise.
Warning. Proceeding with operation in treatment room. Please evacuate immediately. Stars.
So the fight with Nemesis and the garbage compactor here is actually pretty harrowing. I think it's pretty awesome that they made Nemesis mouth openable. So after he walks 2 steps and you hear the second step, that's when you hit the valve there, and then you stand on that pile of orange gunk over there, and then the acid will hit him and it'll melt off his arm. So then we stand over here, right, and we wait for Nemesis to come into view here. Nemesis's pathing will be forced to make him go that way, and then we get him to swing and miss. It takes a little bit of luck, but it's actually a lot easier to hit him during his second and third phases on these outside valves than it is to hit him in the alley, just simply because of the trajectory where the acid is going to hit him, especially because hitting the acid valves will make Nemesis go the other way. But it's like the range sideways is significantly less than the range outward, and he will be forced to move towards that outward spray whenever he backsteps. And after you melt off his arm, then you try to melt off his head. He's just gonna like attack every like 1 second after a previous attack. At which point, all you can do is just stab the valve that he's closest to and hope that he wanders into it.
Missile attack confirmed.
The horizontal space on the main valves is the issue. So if you're aiming to just get hits off on him with the acid valves, then the best thing to do is to lure him over to any of those other valves, just not the ones in that one alleyway there. Once we head out here to these zombies, we're going to go into the elevator and we are going to quick turn and exit. And then once we get out of here, we're going to do a 90-degree turn to Jill's right and then just hug the wall. And that will give us a clean break towards the door, unless any of those zombies go turbo. Then we're going to make our final save. The final section of the game is just the final boss. That's it. We got really nothing to commentate on except I decided not to use the card key before saving because I didn't actually know the pattern for dodging these guys after using the card key. So I just wanted to go with what I was familiar with. Otherwise I would have skipped this whole song and dance and gone directly to the final Nemesis.
Jill! That's it. We've got to find a way out of here. Now!
Warning.
Always take a wide line around the one zombie on the floor. There's only 2 zombies in here that can actually damage you. The rest of the zombies are inactive. It's just the one on the floor that I dodged, and the second one I had to sort of lure him forward before I could get around him.
Checking system. Checking battery. Warning. There is not enough power to activate the system. Battery connected.
So with Nemesis here, you can push in the first two batteries, but what he does on the third battery is a pretty big crapshoot. If he slinks down before you can push in the third battery, then you run back to battery 1 and put your back towards the battery, and eventually he'll get back on top of the pile of garbage, or the thermal generator, or whatever it is.
Rail cannon has been activated. Executing quick charge program. Preparing to fire.
So once we push in the third battery, we're just going to wait for the thing to charge, and while we're doing so, we're going to bait out attacks from Nemesis. He's just going to spit acid. If he spits acid, then we just get out of the area. Fortunately, he went downwards while the thing was charging. He went down on like the opposite side of the arena. So that means Nemesis was just going to waste a lot of time and a lot of actions getting back on top. So at this point, we just got to go nice and slow. Just let him spit acid. Let him try to hit us. But as long as we're zoning out where the acid lands, then it's going to be not horrendously difficult to avoid getting hit. But once the first shot pops off and the arena turns into a circle, then everything is super easy, because it just becomes a matter of running around a whole bunch until Nemesis drops down. And as long as you don't stand anywhere near the cannon's trajectory and you don't get hit, you're good to go. Because Nemesis just needs to be directly in the cannon's path when it fires. It's the only thing that can kill him, and he can only die if he is at 201 HP or less. But he was being pretty trolly towards me right now, because look at this shit. Actually, I'm pretty sure the reason I didn't notice that was because I was like busy typing shit, or I don't know, gifting subs in Twitch chat or something. And he was still being a fucking shithead. Because he's just tracking me through the wall and he can't decide what he's doing. So after a little while, I just sort of made the decision for him. It's like, okay, if you're going to do that, then you come this way. Oh, right, I received a phone call. That's right. I was answering my phone in the middle of Tay-Earn. Whatever, it's done. And this was Resident Evil 3, knife, no damage.
Warning. System overheating. Enter cooldown mode.
And of course, as this is a knife-only run, we are not giving Nemesis stars. Sorry. But I will let this final cutscene over here play out because this cutscene will not appear in any other run that I do on this channel.
Jim,
It's over, Carlos.
what are you talking about? Don't you hear that? There's a second chopper, and it's here to rescue you.
But who is it? Who could possibly be looking for me?
It doesn't matter. We just have to be there when it lands.
Thanks, you saved us.
I couldn't let you die.
Is it you?
Are you ready to finish this?
It's coming!
Yeah. It's the end.
That's it. Umbrella's going down.
And now we have a rather unfortunate turn of events. It seems that the President and the Federal Council have passed judgment over the civilians of Raccoon City. The President and Federal Council have ruled that the Bacillus Terminate operation is the best course of action for this extreme situation and have since executed. Based on that fact, Raccoon City has been literally wiped off the map. Current reports have the death toll surpassing the 100,000 mark. Our hearts go out to those poor civilians of Raccoon City.
Yeah, sorry about the mains hum there, by the way. There was there was an audio channel absent, so I had to clone audio channels. Anyway, so thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and also be sure to check out my other no damage runs in other games. I do a lot of Resident Evil games, but I also do survival horror, including Parasite Eve, Dino Crisis, Silent Hill, Clock Tower, stuff like that. Also trying to branch out and do other games like Metal Gear, Zelda, Mario, Mega Man, Castlevania, just stuff like that. Also check out my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/carcinogenSDA. That's where I do the vast majority of my recorded playthroughs. For updates on when I am streaming, when I go live, check out the community page on YouTube or join the Discord server at discord.gg/carcinogenSDA or follow me on Twitter at carcinogenSDA. If you would like to monetarily support my bad speedrunning and challenge run habit, you may do so at patreon.com/carcinogenSDA. For as little as $1, you get early access to all of my completed videos before they go live on my main YouTube channel. And for $5 a month, you can get access to all of my work in progresses, including commentaries as I record them before they go live. But anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.